Welcome and thank you for clicking on my video. Really do appreciate you guys liking and subscribing and joining the live videos. You guys have been awesome. And we were talking about how today the CPI really could crash half of you out there, because tomorrow, if you're willing to trade beforehand, is going to be kind of a toss-up because we don't know the exact number that is going to come out. We have some bearishness in there, but when we do have something that is a 50-50 toss-up because we have some data in the morning, it's good to do some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, NVIDIA, AMD, and we're going to get into Meta as well. Let's get right into it. Before we get started, I just wanted to pull up the maximum pain for the SPY. I wanted you guys to see this. I want you to see this put call ratio for the expiration for the end of the week. And we have 2.9336. That is a very, very high put to call ratio. And we're noticing that even though we have some tall call walls up here at 522 and 528, those puts down here are really what are shaking up this market. People really banking on some kind of crash, and that very well could happen this week. But usually when we get that high of number, it's going to be a little bit wonkier price action. So we have to keep that in mind as we move forward. As we click over to the SPY, we were talking about this live today, kind of how we were just suggesting how this does look like some flagging. So there is a argument that this could go lower. And if you actually measure this movement out, if this was going to be an ABC from where it's at right now, we actually would test the bottom of the weekly range. And speaking of weekly ranges, we need to give you those daily ranges. All right, 517.71 to the upside and 504.81 to the downside. And this is the first thing. So this would be the bearish take. This is some kind of flagging in here, and we're actually going to see that head down to lower levels pretty quick, and maybe we get a bounce from this area because we do land within these purple lines 68% of the time. And if we get excited and get out of this daily expected move early on in the day, we can see that bounce come to fruition. So we have to pay attention to this moving forward. This would be a very important area to hold up if we do see that bearishness come in. But because we do not know the exact number that'll come out for the CPI, a lot of people expecting it to tick up. So I'm starting to lean the other way, to be honest. And that's just because of this MACD behavior. Okay, so this MACD behavior down here showing that crossing down here on the MACD, actually giving us potential to get into positive territory here. So this small signal here is just telling you, hey, there could be a momentum shift back to the upside. Now that does happen a lot when we are flagging. So it really is both ways at this point. So if we see that reaction in the morning, get some kind of positive reaction, look for this to go into positive territory, maybe come and test this high as of tomorrow, because tomorrow look at where that upside of that daily expected move, it's at the previous high, and this one here at another important level at this base down here. So we're probably going to touch one of these tomorrow. Very interesting to see how big the range is for tomorrow. It means that tomorrow's CPI report is very, very important moving forward. And we just crossed up on this MACD. So if I switch over to like an hourly or something like that, you'll notice we're right next to positive territory. So if that news is good, these stocks, or the SPY is actually telling you this has potential to roll up. This has potential to have that positivity. Okay, so the only other thing we have to mention is the 30-minute is in negative territory. So there really is an argument for both ways. And that's why we need to be trading like water. Stay on your toes tomorrow, because we could get one move down and then get a move up. Maybe we want to look out for divergences on those shorter time frames. But really how this is shaping up, we do have that crossing of the MACD here right next to positive territory. We could see another point of divergence form before we actually see the actual crash happen. And maybe it's actually PPI that tears down this market. And this is something we can pay attention to as well. We were really talking about this level down in here. If this overall is not, a meaningful shoulder, we actually could go make that right shoulder. That's what we were talking about on the Qs, this left head, maybe a big right shoulder to form. The interesting part about these daily ranges, 444.76 to the upside, and we have 429.94 to the downside. Highly encourage you to put these on your chart for tomorrow, because this is a big range. So you can see how important the market is going to take in this data for the CPI, and the implied volatility is giving you a big move for tomorrow. Okay, so how this could actually go up, we got that crossing a little deeper down into negative territory for the Qs, and you'll notice this one here doesn't match the high like the SPY. So that tells me if we do see some kind of pop higher, if that's given away, we might not get the confirmation of a new high on the Qs, but we might get that on the SPY. So that is a signal that we are going to pay attention to the bullish side. Now the bearish side is very similar. You do have flagging in here. You have the potential to drop lower. We are not oversold or anything like that by any means. And if we do take out this base, we can free fall and head down towards this gap, which actually lines up pretty well with, our next support, our trend line, and the weekly expected move down there at 427.31. So this area right here would be very important for some kind of bounce. If we start to break through that area, we might be getting one of those unique times where we actually break through the weekly expected move, use it as resistance, and then head lower. So tomorrow does have the potential to crash the market. Not necessarily what I'm leaning towards at this moment, but I've positioned myself as a just in case. I've positioned myself accordingly. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more fun, right? We do see buying back into Apple for the first time in a long time, and we kind of called this. We called the rotation slightly out of NVIDIA around here, said we could get some kind of pop if they rotate into Apple. That very well might happen, but the fact that Apple is seeing some strength before this news is a decent sign. Now, we were overall stating, watch out if this thing wants to roll over, get back into negative territory, and that's what you can pay attention to for tomorrow, because we could get that cup and handle and start to head lower. And this over here, maybe we'd want to pull up an hourly. This will be better to look at on an hourly. You'll see how close we are to negative territory. We can roll over and get a point of divergence later for a bounce later on, down the line. So you want to pay attention to that kind of thing. This is a move here. So if we are consolidating up in this area, maybe we do want to get towards this zone, which is something we've talked about. Apple's been beat down for quite some time, and so this positive move may have some weight in it. And we're going to get into other stocks that are showing us some hints before the CPI what could happen. But really pay attention tomorrow. If this hourly starts to cross over, that would be negative territory. If it rejects the crossing, that would be positive for the overall market. That's really what you have to pay attention to. It could be 50-50 at this point. So you want to be very, very careful. Trade like water, move around the rocks. The next rock we have in front of us is tomorrow with the CPI. This is one of the stocks that is giving us a little bit of technical hint. If it is correct, that would be very interesting, and that would be Amazon. Amazon, we just got this lower high, kind of consolidating in this channel, right? We're kind of moving up and down, pretty good moves here, up and down, but we are overall staying within this little bit of a range, little bit of a channel. So if we remain in this channel, you notice we're trying to break it at the end of the day, break through this base, the last point of this base. So it'd be very bearish to roll over here. The thing that I wanted to point out to you guys was the MACD and the RSI down here. So if you actually hold this even, we have a flatness of the MACD. Down here on the MACD, we have flatness, okay? But on the RSI, we actually see that divergence in here. So this hasn't confirmed yet, but if it does, that means the momentum here is slowing down. So if we get some good news, actually Amazon can see a pretty strong move heading forward. Maybe we actually react up to this level, get some kind of right shoulder, and get a little head and shoulders going in here. So that would be a positive thing to look forward to if you wanted to get bullish into tomorrow, if the CPI is good for us. Now the bearish thing would be we're going to break this right here and go fill this gap down at 168.63, 168 level, somewhere in there. So this is overall our target for the bear side. The bull side is maybe we touch the top side of this channel at this point. That's something to pay attention to, because a lot of the time 30-minute divergences, if they can get some steam behind them, you start to roll over the 2-hour chart. This 2-hour chart just got into negative territory. Who's to say that's not going to curl up one more time? So we could see this curl up one more time. Is that going to give us another lower high? That's really what I'm paying attention to as of tomorrow, seeing if there is some kind of bullish move to give us another lower high to really gain some liquidity to break through this base. I would really like us to pop up just a little bit, even just to grab some little liquidity in here, in this low down here maybe, and then break through that level. So we have to pay attention to these types of things. One thing that I wanted to point out to you guys was the fact that the Fed is actually having their interest rate decision next week. So if we do see good news with the CPI, but then the Fed still says they are not going to cut rates and they are not going to give a projection for a cutting of rates, then we can see that bearishness come in again. So pay attention to that if CPI comes out bullish for the market. Tesla was very interesting. We were talking about this live, how Tesla has the potential for a very, very strong move. I mean, it really does. You have a 2-hour divergence down here. It's kind of spread out, but you do have it across the board over here. And then you also see on the daily, if we're able to roll that up, well, it would actually roll up over into positive territory most likely. And we could be confirming a divergence on Tesla very, very soon on the daily scale. So this is just telling you, it's not telling you like, hey, this has to bounce. The fact that we have CPI tomorrow, if we had no news tomorrow, that could say, hey, the momentum's dead here, and then you could see that bounce. But because we have CPI, it really depends on that. So if the CPI comes out good for the market, maybe you're actually expecting Tesla to see a strong move here. That's all I'm saying about Tesla at this point. The thing that I would really pay attention to on the 30 minutes, see if this thing actually rolls over into negative territory, makes a new low. If this starts to make a new low, you built up a decent amount of liquidity in here. So if you start to break through this level, you could be heading down, and we have marked off that 154.78. So I'm trying to give you guys a bullish and bearish case today, because really the signals are telling me this could go either way, and it truly depends on that CPI data. This is where we were talking about NVIDIA, and I think we were pretty spot on, last Friday, how this was just some profit taking, maybe those 1,300 calls taking some profit. A lot of people projecting that this thing can get to 1,000, this thing can get to 1,200. So this would have to turn up. We need this 30-minute here to turn up and get into positive territory. If that actually happens, that'd happen around here. Maybe we get a little handle and then we start to head upward, test this high, go make a new one. If you're part of the Patreon, which I really appreciate if you are, pay attention to those weekly expected moves, because we could be getting a move out of those one way or the other, and that really would set up a good trade for you possibly going into the end of the week. So look for some divergence up here, or maybe we actually want to drop down to lower levels and look for some support around those weekly expected moves. That is very, very, very helpful. And if you're short or long on this, hey, if this thing booms and I'm long on this, okay, I just hit the weekly expected move, this is where I take profit off the table. If I'm short on this, then I say, boom, this thing came down because of CPI. This is where, wherever that bottom side of the weekly expected move, that's where I take profit. It is a very, very, very useful tool, and we can use it as well on AMD, paying attention to a similar thing. And I'm just going to show you what we were paying attention to. This 15-minute is kind of the bearish side for NVIDIA and for AMD, because they look very similar. Notice the 15-minute kind of trickling across. You start to break this base, you curl over on the 15-minute in negative territory, but is that going to be short-lived? That could be short-lived, and we could get a point of divergence down here. The reason that we could actually see a pop from this level is because I know it's a very short time frame, but the 5-minute, if you really want us to start trickling higher, this 5-minute is right in the center here, which tells us this could go up, this could go down on the 5-minute scale. So that's just something to pay attention to. But really, if you want to watch AMD or NVIDIA tomorrow, pay attention if the 30-minute curls up, then you just need that to get into positive territory. We could see a big move up and then see that given away, maybe with PPI. Now, if we are going to extend this move for a little bit of time, we actually could roll up this 2-hour, okay? So since we could have a chance of testing this high with that 30-minute crossing over, well, then we have to pay attention to a 2-hour as well. If this 2-hour is able to curl up in positive territory, what does that mean? More positivity. So if this wanted to sustain for quite some time, maybe even going into next week or something like that, you'd really need this 2-hour to curl up, but that might create some kind of divergence right before that Fed rate decision, okay? So let's pay attention to that. Right now, you do have the potential for a bounce from a head and shoulders perspective on the way down too. You do have that left, you have that head, and maybe we get some kind of bounce to set up a right shoulder. So be very, very careful going into tomorrow. Meta is giving you a big hint, okay? Meta's giving a pretty big hint, which is it is at the bottom of its range on the first day of trading of the week. Yes, we gave you the bottom side range during the live video, 583.08 for Meta. So thank you so much if you made it this far into the video. And I know I'm frozen right now, but hopefully you can still see what I'm drawing. And what we were overall paying attention to live was, and what we mentioned on Patreon, was to watch Meta, because Meta is down towards its weekly expected move on the first day of trading of the week. So Meta is actually telling you that the risk to reward here is upside. Upside is the reward. Okay, if you start to short around this area, well, Meta does have that 32% chance to crash and see something crazier happen, maybe come and fill this gap over here, towards that 467 price point. But if this wants to curl up and get into positive territory, this thing could start to move higher. This thing could really start to move higher, because this is all the options market priced in for the entire week, and we are already there. So either with Meta, we are going to see something crazy happen and crash down, or Meta's telling us, hey, I'm already at the bottom side of what we expected for the week, and I'm actually going to most likely head higher. So really have to be open to it. If Meta wanted to crash down, we were talking about this head and shoulders, left, head, and maybe we go make some kind of right shoulder. That's what we were talking about throughout the last week or so on Meta, and now we're at that point where that right shoulder can form if we see positivity. But this right here is another signal just telling you, hey, I have a lot of potential in Meta to bounce from this level right before a big event like the CPI. So you do have mixed signals out there. And when you have mixed signals, you really don't want to 50-50 it, right? You want to see how the market reacts tomorrow and then make your trades according to that reaction. Kind of like we say when we say trade like water, you move around the rocks and then you see which way the stream is going, and that's the direction you will go as well. Weirdly enough, volatility was telling us today, hey, I've got a bunch of divergences on this 15-minute, and we didn't necessarily see the most positivity in the market from this, but you saw that die off. So if volatility wants to scoot back up, get some kind of handle, we can see that head and shoulders up in here. Okay, we can see that form in the near future. You're pretty much in a channel at this point. And the thing that is actually bullish for the market, so this would be the bearish case. The bullish thing is if this 2 hour is able to cross. If this 2 hour is able to cross, we may go down and fill this gap, and we may even see extreme bullishness, especially if the PPI comes out good for the market. We may go fill this gap we were talking about a long time ago, right around that 13 level. So really want to pay attention to both of these gaps at this point. They could be filled as of this week if we see a good CPI reading, and that's why we want to react accordingly and not try to guess which way this thing is going. I know that myself, I'm mostly sitting on cash right now, waiting to see which way the actual market wants to go tomorrow before I place any trades. So the main takeaway here is it really can blow up a lot of your accounts if you trade on days like this instead of seeing the news first and then reacting according to that news. We don't want to try to guess beforehand. We just want to figure out which way the stream is going tomorrow and then placing our positions accordingly. So I really hope you guys are being careful out there. I really hope you guys are paying attention because volatility can come in at any moment, but we're seeing a few things I could say, hey, CPI really could go either way tomorrow, so be on your toes. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you do want to learn a lot of these technical things, you can go look at the course down in my description. Right now it is 50% off because I believe a bear market is coming and it has a bear market strategy in it. So 50% off for the whole month of March. And I hope some of you guys are grabbing it. A lot of you are giving me feedback, showing up to the live video and really enjoying it. So I just wanted to leave you off with this. Be very careful out there tomorrow. It really is a 50-50 flip, so be careful. And I hope you guys all the luck. I wish you guys all the luck in the world with your trades tomorrow. And I hope you have a great night. Peace.